Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Happy to have you join me. What I want to talk about today is the proper way to read and reply to an invitation. This is going to be maybe a little bit more pertaining to a wedding invitation, but that is not always the case. Just any invitation in general. My first tip is to communicate to your children that if an invitation comes in the mail, to not open it, or if they do, to not throw the invitation away, or the envelope, I should say. The reason for that is a lot of wedding venues nowadays are adult only, and also there's a lot of adult children that could be dating someone. Things that you need to pay attention to. My husband and I have a large family. We have 3 adult children. The 3 adult children are out on their own, therefore they are receiving their own invites to things. But I do feel that there is a skill in that we need to pay very close attention. Let me also say real quick that if you don't receive an invitation to something, don't take it personally, especially when it comes to wedding invitations. A lot of wedding venues are much smaller these days, and therefore the bride and the groom have to be very choosy on who they select to be invited to their special day. It doesn't mean that they don't want everyone to be there. It's just they are limited on people. Weddings are very, very costly and expensive. And if it's smaller and they're paying that much money, they have to pick and choose who comes first. And there are going to be people that are eliminated. Another thing that will happen in that situation is some people may get a +1, some people may not. Have respect. It's very costly to have a wedding. Understand that it is very difficult for the bride and groom when they are making these decisions. We have not been in that situation. None of our children are married yet, but I do know that someday, probably sooner than later, we will be facing this same situation. Be very mindful and respectful of what others are doing. But back to the invite. One of the things that we have always told our girls is that if an invitation comes in the mail and it says Mr. and Mrs. Paul Hensel and family, if you do choose to open that, if mom and dad are not home, please do not throw the envelope away. We have had that happen before where the envelope has been thrown away and we never really got to see who it was addressed to. A lot of receptions are adult receptions, meaning children are not invited, so it is something that you really want to pay attention to. The other thing is, take no offense if your children are not invited. Most wedding receptions have drinking. It's really not a place for small children. I know that when my girls get married someday, if they have the option to have it be an adult-only reception and they ask my opinion, I know I am going to advise them to make it an adult-only reception for that reason, because again, there's drinking. Kids like to run around. I know it's a lot of fun, but when I was a child, and I see this today, when children see the dance floor, they just want to go barreling out on that dance floor and run around, and they should. They're children. But again, don't forget there's drinking, there's very expensive items at wedding receptions. It's really just not a place really for children. If you choose to have children, that's great. Everybody has their own opinion on that. The other thing is most of the time you are paying a per plate price, and it can get really costly. And then when you're paying for those children. And the other thing too to bear in mind is, like I said earlier, a lot of venues are much smaller these days. And if you can eliminate 8 to 10 young children and you can open that window up for some adults that you would like to have there because you're limited on seating, I almost think that you're going to be more thankful that you had some of your friends that maybe you went to college with, or maybe some of your colleagues from work that you wouldn't have been able to invite because of your smaller venue. I would probably rather enjoy my time with them than a bunch of children that frankly are just going to want to run around. But again, to each their own. I'm not saying my way is the right way. It's whatever works for you, but that is my opinion. That being said, when that invitation comes, it's very important for you to look and see who is on the invitation. If it just says Mr. and Mrs. Paul Hensel, and that is it, that is an indicator that the children are not invited. Don't ask the bride or groom if children are invited. If they were, they would be on there. If you are a future bride or groom, remember to be very clear on your invitations who is invited so that there's no confusion there. The other thing that I want to mention, and I say this because we recently just got a wedding invitation for my niece, which I am so excited. She is having a reception that is including children, which I think is wonderful. She has a child of her own. Again, it's to each your own, and it'll all work out. I'm just sharing the two different sides. This invitation came addressed to Uncle Paul, Aunt Tracy, Carly, and Chloe. Carly and Chloe are the only two that are living at home. And inside, it says 4 seats are reserved for you. My 4th daughter, Carly, will be a senior in high school. She's going to be 18, and in 1 more month, she'll be 18, and she has a boyfriend. When this invitation came, I shared with her that there's 4 seats reserved. So I said, Carly, just so you know, that means that your boyfriend is not invited, and that's okay. Again, you can only seat so many people, so you have to pick and choose. And she's also not an adult, it's not a long-term relationship, but it was important for me just to communicate that to her in case she didn't know. A lot of kids at that age, they really don't know these things yet. It takes the parents to communicate and to let them know. So I let her know right away. Now, my oldest daughter, Kirsten, is not married. Many of you know, though, that she does have a long-term boyfriend. On their invitation, Kirsten was invited plus Tim and Tim's daughter, but they're adults. That's how the bride and groom choose to do it. My point here is not about how it should be done or the right way or the wrong way. My point is for you to pay attention. That's all I'm getting at, is pay attention to that. Don't make assumptions. I have a daughter that lives in New York. Just one moment. Yes, honey?
Oh, it's not in the garage, where is it?
It's in the laundry room.
Oh.
And I put money with it, but if you don't need the money, well, obviously you probably don't. Just give her the voucher. Sorry. Big family. This is how it works. Pips needed me. That's Chloe, daughter number 5. We're keeping it real here. So just very important to pay attention to that. What else was I going to say before we were interrupted? Important to never make assumptions. My daughter that lives back to my daughter in New York, she is not dating anyone. She does not have a long-term boyfriend. She's not dating, or she's never shared with us she's dating anyone in New York anyway. I guess I don't know, but I don't think so. We were just out there visiting her, and I didn't get any hints or speculations that there was anybody else. But for instance, for her, she's been invited to a couple weddings, and although she is an adult, she just got invited for one. She didn't get a +1. Now, sometimes in her situation, she could get a +1. My daughter McKenna has a long-term boyfriend. Not married, but she is an adult. She got a +1. What I'm getting at is some of my daughters that have a boyfriend had a +1 on their invitation, but then I have a daughter that didn't. That is okay, and that's what I want to share. So many people get so offended or upset. I recently just had a conversation with another person that had this happen and was very offended, and I had to remind them it's very costly to have these wedding receptions. Let the bride and groom make the decision. Let the bride and groom have their special day. It is not our place to say who's invited, and just be happy for them. It's a lot. It is a lot. And I know we will be faced with these choices someday when our girls get married, and I know it's going to be difficult. Who do you give a +1 to? Who do you not? Who do you eliminate because the venue is smaller? These are decisions, and they're difficult decisions. be mindful and be respectful that it's difficult on the bride and groom and their families. Don't hold it against them. It's really sad when that happens. The other thing that I want to talk about with your invitations and your RSVPs, it's really important to get them filled out right away and get them turned back in. If you are waiting on some of your older children to see what their schedule is, go to the reminders app on your phone and put about 7 days out from what the RSVP date is to reach out to your children and say, are you going to be able to make it? And if everyone can make it, they need to commit to it. Do not let your children last minute say, I can't go to this because I have something else. And same with adults. If you RSVP to something, then you go. The bride and groom and their families are paying a lot of money for you to be there, and you need to be there. It's very disrespectful to not be there. It really is irresponsible. If you RSVP, you're there. That calls for any invitation. I know I'm honing in a little bit on wedding invitations, but I'm talking about all invitations that you receive together, whether it's a Facebook invite or if it's an invitation you received in the mail. If you RSVP that you are going to be there, then you're going to be there. It's a non-negotiable unless something catastrophic happens, and it does. And I know myself, if something catastrophic happened and I couldn't be at something that I had RSVP'd for, knowing the person that I am and knowing the expense that goes into any party that anybody throws, I know this because we host parties all the time, I would probably send them a check for whatever I thought the expense was, because I know they've already paid for me to be there. They've already paid for my plate. And I would send an apology, explain I was in the hospital, whatever it may be, because things do happen. A death could happen in the family. We don't know. Life is unpredictable. But if that's not the case, it's your responsibility to be there. The other thing that it's your responsibility is to be on time. Do not show up late for things. Be mindful. Be respectful. Get your RSVPs in. The bride and groom want to know right away who's going to be there. The sooner you get it in, the more they appreciate it. If you don't turn in an RSVP, you don't go, because they don't know you're going. That's what these are for. There's always a stamp on it. If you neglect to turn it in, you can't assume that they paid for your plate to be there. You don't go, and you write an apology letter. But be responsible. It's amazing how many people really aren't responsible. The other thing, going back to the children, never assume your children are invited. If they're not on the invitation, they're not invited. It is not your place to ask, are kids going to be included? It's also not your place to go talk to other people. Oh, I guess kids aren't invited. Or were you invited? Oh, this person wasn't invited. It's really not your business. It's really not your business. It's the bride and grooms. They get to make the final call, and it's always a difficult one. Read the envelopes, pay attention, get the RSVP in, and I think that covers it. I don't know. I kind of done this video on a whim because we just got an invitation. So there you go. I thought I would share. I hope this was helpful. I hope it makes sense, and I hope none of it was taken the wrong way. Again, I'm not against whatever people do. I just know that back when I was a child and a teenager, and even when we got married, every single wedding reception had children in it. Ours did. I think it's only been maybe in the last, I don't know how many years, that you will see more adult-only receptions and venues. And some people still have a hard time understanding that or digesting that. And it's okay. Things change. Weddings are more expensive now, and it's just a lot different, and we have to understand that and be conscious of that. All right, I will quit babbling. Hope you have a great day, and we will see you soon in another video. All right, take care.